Hello, Home Slices. It's Kiera with Home Slice Adulting coming to you with my review for season 1, episode 3 of The Last OG. Real quick, let's talk a little bit about the last episode of The Last OG. So, yesterday I got a text message from my boyfriend telling me to look up a story about I think it was Philadelphia and Starbucks. And we all know it's a big story right now about how two black men were arrested for not purchasing coffee when they went to the bathroom. And so when my boyfriend asked me to read that story and see if there was anything familiar, he was talking about last week's episode of The Last OG, where Trey had to basically steal the bathroom key to use the bathroom, despite not being a customer, paid customer. And it ended up working out for Trey where he got a job, but it didn't really work out the best for those two black men that got arrested in Philadelphia. But art imitates life, apparently. So that's just something that I wanted to point out. But moving on, let's go ahead and get started on talking about this week's episode, which was titled Truth Safari. So it was interesting how he started off with a little monologue about how seahorses have to give birth to the children. Now, the eggs are actually fertilized by the female seahorse, and they're placed into a pouch. And when the babies are ready to come out, the father actually gives birth to the seahorses. And he was saying how the seahorses make all the other fathers look bad. And so I thought it was so funny when he was at work, and this lady comes up and she has this complicated coffee order, and she's like, oh, can I get a large espresso macchiato with sugar and cream and split it into 2 cups? When I'm telling you that there are actually customers that actually do that, it's like the worst. Like, if it's not on the menu and the configuration that it is on the menu, don't even don't be one of those customers. There used to be one lady that was so specific. She would tell us, like, do a pump and a half of white chocolate, or do a half pump of white chocolate and this and that, and then put it in 2 cups. And it's like, lady, you're not paying for 2 cups. So why are you asking for 2 cups? It's crazy. But I'm sorry, y'all. Excuse me. But it was funny to me that she had actually did that, because there are people who have those difficult coffee orders. So that was funny. But moving on, we're at the halfway house talking to some of the other guys who are in there. I don't really know what to call them, but they're talking about how, Trey just found out that he has kids, and how Tiffany Haddish's character Shannon is not allowing him to see their kids. And they all get into this conversation about how a part of the reason why their lives are so messed up is because they didn't have fatherly guidance. And they talk about how some of their fathers were in jail, or some of their fathers may have been in the home but weren't really there for them. Big Country's father got a job as a mall Santa, so he wouldn't have to spend Christmas with his family. They all talked about how not having a father in their lives contributed to them messing up. And Trey kind of didn't buy into that, but I think he was just trying to absolve himself of the guilt that he might feel for not being there for his own kids. But, truth of the matter is he didn't know they existed. But moving on, Cedric the Entertainer's character is so pessimistic and saying, you all are all screw-ups, and, all that kind of stuff. And he's annoying to me. Excuse me, he thinks he's a comedian. Yeah, I forgot my alarm was on. We're going to take a little journey across the room to turn the alarm off. Oh, that's a tip. For those of you who have a tendency to hit the snooze button on your alarms, if you set the alarm across the room, you're more likely to get up, because you have to walk over and turn the alarm off. But moving on, next we see that Trey is waiting for Josh, who is Shannon's husband and the stepfather of Trey's kids. And he's basically saying, you know, as long as you stay in your lane, we'll be okay. And he has ice cream there. And he's like, this is my lane. This is my house. And apparently he's lived there for 9 years. He's been around in the kids' lives for a long time. So basically, Josh gets conned into telling him that their kids go to the best private school and telling him where that school is and the name of it. And so Trey ends up showing up at their school, and he's lying and telling them, "Oh, your mom wanted me to walk you home." And they talk about how Trey and the boy, whose name I can't remember, it's like Amir and Ashad or something like that. But the boy and Tracy Morgan really do. Whew. Yeah, I'm so sorry. I got a lot of sleep too. I shouldn't be tired. But anyways, they talk about how Trey and the son have the same nose, and it's kind of weird that they actually do. But he says he wants to take the kids on a truth safari, and in exchange, the kids want all of their questions answered about their father. And so they agree, and Bobby comes along for the ride. So eventually Shay comes home, and Josh, in a very roundabout way, ends up telling Tiffany Haddish's character Shannon that he told Trey where they go to school. So now they have to go hunt them down on this true safari. So during the true safari, one of the places that Trey takes them is to a apartment complex, or the whatever you want to call it, the projects, wherever it was a residence where there was a fight breaking out between the fat guy and the skinny guy. And something legendary in the hood had happened because some dude named Crazy Mike came, down, outside with a baby in his arms and ended up breaking up a fight with the baby. So apparently that was like a legendary moment because they really felt like that was something big and memorable. But whatever. So apparently that was a little conversation starter, and that incident led to them talking. And he was like, well, how you feel about Crazy Mike breaking up that fight with that baby? And so that's how they got their relationship started, Trey and Shay. And so we see Tiffany Haddish's character, Shay, and Josh in a lift, and they're talking about the whole thing, and she's telling him how she wants to take a nutcracker to Trey's penis, and then the lift driver is listening to them, and she's like, can we have some privacy here? And he's like, oh, I wasn't listening. And she was like, yes, you were. I don't know how she expected any privacy. It's not like she's in a real cab that has the, plastic separator, or a limo that has a separator or whatever from the driver. And so they threaten each other with 1-star ratings or whatever. And moving on, that was kind of funny to me because I have driven for Uber and Lyft before. But moving on, the kids are still on the true safari, and they're trying to figure out what involvement their mother had in the drug game. Trey kind of absolves her of any of that. Oh, she didn't really do anything. The only thing that she did is maybe drew some pictures on some of the bags or whatever, but she was not a drug dealer. But they say that she wasn't completely innocent because she knew that he was a drug dealer. And he had to explain to them that back before they were born, Brooklyn was very different, and that they had to create their own opportunities. It was very different than what it is now. And I think that's something that there's something to be said about, I guess, the gentrification of places, is that it doesn't allow for the people who are growing up there to understand what the place used to be like. And they don't really have the amount of compassion or sympathy or understanding of the way things used to be. But moving on, they talk about how Shay threw a brick through a cop car windshield to show how much she loved Trey. And they're just eating up all of this information about their mom because they know who their mom is now. She appears to be very educated. She appears to have a really good job. She's married to a white dude living in gentrified Brooklyn, being able to afford the rent there, sending them to a great private school. So she's apparently doing really well for herself. And it's amazing what, time can do, considering how she was, in the hood throwing, bricks through cop car windshields. And then next thing you know, she has this better lifestyle, and is able to afford all these things or whatever. But moving on, the lift shows her that the last place that her kids were before her daughter turned off her phone or whatever was at the place where Crazy Mike broke up that fight with the baby. And so she realizes that he's taking them down a trip on memory lane, and she is afraid that they are going to like their biological father. And her mindset is very weird to me. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But her mindset about everything is very odd to me. So next we're at the cemetery, and at first he's saying, "Well, this is where this person is buried, and that person is buried," and they're like, "Are we here to talk about dead people?" And he's like, "No, I'm here to show you where you were conceived." And I was like, "Ew, like, yuck." Who does that? Who goes to the cemetery to have a picnic and make babies? That's disgusting. But Shannon and Josh finally catch up to Bobby, and Bobby is like, "Okay, I got this. I got this. Hey, you can't just be coming up here." And she just punches him right in the face like it's nothing. So, according to Shay's little monologue, she says that it is Trey's fault that he did not rat out the person whose drugs they actually were. He probably could have gotten a lesser sentence, or maybe not even going to jail at all, if he had ratted out the person who was actually responsible for his for those drugs that were found on him. So she's blaming him for him not being in his kids' lives. And then he said, "Well, you never told me that I even had kids." Now, had Shannon told Trey that he actually had children, it's possible that he would have had more motivation to rat Wavy out and had more motivation to do more and better things with his life. So, in her defense, she did try to tell him on the night that he was arrested. But, things just didn't work out that way. But she did have 15 years to tell him that he had kids. So I'm going to put most of the blame on Tiffany Haddish's character, Shannon, because she didn't even let him know that he had kids, and that he didn't have any opportunity to be in their lives until now. And she feels like Trey is coming in and disrupting their lives. And she threatens that the next time he pulls a stunt like that, she will call the cops on him. And she didn't appear to be playing. So next we see that Josh, Shannon, and the two kids are playing Pictionary. And I don't know why none of them got Gingerbread Man, because that definitely looked like a gingerbread man, but whatever. But anyways, I love that without Trey, they have a dream kind of life, going to the best schools, being able to afford things, playing game, like having a game night. To me, that's like the ideal family, and I love that they have that without Trey. And I think that's one of the things that Tiffany is worried about, is that she's worked so hard to provide this life for her children, and if Trey comes into their lives, he may not be the best influence. We all know that he really don't know how to act. He can't follow the rules at work. I mean, so I think she thinks that he'll be a bad influence and that he will disrupt their perfect family. But lastly, they show that the word is brick, and the girl is it Amir? I think the girl's name is Amir, and she draws a diagram of a brick being thrown through a cop window, and that brings back memories for Tiffany. So what I'm hoping is that Tiffany is no longer in love with Trey, because I definitely would not want to see Shannon destroy her marriage with Josh over a jailbird who can't do nothing for her, that's working at a coffee shop for minimum wage. But we'll have to see how that love triangle thing fades away. And so lastly, we see Trey is on bathroom duty because he didn't obey Cedric the Entertainer's character's wishes. And so that is the end of the episode. Y'all, I wish that these episodes were a little funnier. They have funny moments here and there, but it's coming off to me more like a less like a sitcom and more like, I guess, like a drama that has funny moments inserted. So I'm wishing that they get to the point where Tiffany Haddish's character is kind of let loose and has funnier moments or whatever. But moving on, y'all, that is the end of my review. Thank you guys for watching and peace out, home slices. Don't forget that I am also reviewing Facts and Family Values and Y'all Fix My Life. And am I reviewing another show? And next week will be the very last episode of Real Housewives of Atlanta reunion. So as that is going off, I'm thinking about picking up another show to review, but I don't really know. I have a lot of things coming up that I need to take care of. So I don't know if I'll have time to um replace Real Housewives of Atlanta, but we'll see. Thank you guys for watching and peace out again, home slices.